In the town of Willowbrook, nestled among the dense forests of New England, stood an old abandoned house on the outskirts. The locals avoided it, believing it to be cursed. However, the Grayson family, who had recently moved here from the big city, paid no heed to the old legends. They decided that the old house, with its creaky floors and faded wallpaper, was a perfect place for a fresh start. On the eve of an autumn night, John and Mary Grayson prepared for their first party in Willowbrook. It was Halloween, and they thought it would be a great way to get to know their neighbors. Mary meticulously decorated the house with pumpkins, candles, and artificial cobwebs. The party promised to be fun and unforgettable. Guests began to gather around 8 in the evening. Among them were familiar faces: Mrs. Griffiths from the bakery, Mr. Harper from the hardware store, and a few other townsfolk. Everyone except the Graysons' neighbors, the Vance family, who lived in the house across the street. John and Mary had heard about them but had never seen them. They were mysterious and seemed to keep to themselves. John was starting to feel disappointed when the doorbell finally rang. 3 people stood on the doorstep: a tall man with aristocratic features, his beautiful wife with pale skin and dark eyes, and their daughter, who looked like a porcelain doll. These were the Vances. "Greetings. We are the Vances, your neighbors," the man introduced himself, extending his hand. "Thank you for the invitation." Their presence brought a special atmosphere to the party. They had refined manners, and their stories were interesting and captivating. The Graysons were glad such pleasant people lived nearby, but something about the Vances' behavior seemed odd. Their movements were too smooth and their smiles too wide. When John accidentally cut his finger with a knife while preparing snacks, all 3 Vances suddenly turned their attention to him, their eyes glinting with a predatory gleam. Mary quickly covered the wound with a napkin, and the Vances returned to their activities as if nothing had happened. When the clock struck midnight, the guests began to leave. The Vances were the last to remain. They suggested that John and Mary continue the evening at their house. Mary was ready to decline, but John, charmed by their new friends, agreed. The inside of the Vance house looked even older and more mysterious than the outside. High ceilings, massive furniture, old paintings on the walls, all created a sense of stepping into another era. The Vances invited them to the living room, where a candlelit dinner with wine was already set. "This is a special evening for us," Mr. Vance said, pouring the wine. "We are celebrating our anniversary." "What kind of anniversary?" John asked. "The 200th anniversary of the day we became part of this community," Vance replied with a mysterious smile. The Graysons laughed, thinking it was a joke, but the Vances remained serious. "You might know the old legends about this house," Mrs. Vance said, "about the curse and how every 100 years we celebrate our new life." "Vampires," Mary whispered, horrified to realize it wasn't just a scary story. "Precisely," Vance answered, "and tonight you will become part of our history." John and Mary rushed to the door but found it locked. Vance raised his glass and smiled menacingly. "Happy Halloween, Graysons," he said as the candle went out and darkness engulfed the room. When the morning sun illuminated the Vance house, it stood quiet and deserted. Willowbrook never saw John and Mary again. New residents moved into the old house a year later, and the town went on, unaware that their new neighbors, the Vances, were once again waiting for the opportunity to meet friendly neighbors on Halloween.